because project management is not something that, it's really strange. You know, project management is not something a lot of us do as a structured, this is what I do day in and day out. Or, and then on the other hand, we have a lot of people with the title of project manager who actually don't have any project management experience. So it's a really interesting space. So a lot of you probably already are managing projects to one degree or other. And I know a lot of you, and that's for sure true. The thing with project management is that it gives you a framework around which to actually pull off the things that you love to do, or that you want to do, or that you see potential in, and you're not sure how to get your hands around it, or you want to take that next step in your career, whether that's go out on your own or get a promotion, or maybe tackle a big project because that's what you love, you want to try your hand at. But if you don't, a lot of times you feel like you know you can handle it, but man, if you just had a couple skills or additional skills, or maybe a few tools in your toolkit, that would really help you. So project management was really designed for ridiculously big and complicated things. Like when I was on Landsat for the USGS NASA mission, which is a land observing satellite, that was a multi-million dollar, $40 million program. It's bigger now, I think. And with 150 people, 282 objectives, if I remember correctly, that were all being tracked in real time. So really complicated, really crazy amount of work to both to track all that and be successful. So, but what is really cool is that you can take little pieces and parts of project management and kind of stack them in a way that relates directly to the things that you want to do. So you can leave all of the crazy amount of, super structured stuff behind and pull out the pieces that will really make your life easier and better. And that's kind of something that we at Rose Group have become pretty efficient at and proficient at, because of course, there's a ton of people that are like you who are trying to do new cool things, but just have never really been exposed to it. So that is something that we're doing and we're really excited about. So I need to just take 10 seconds here. And I'm going to tell you a secret. Let me see who's on. I think it's mostly women. Yeah, I think it's all women. Oh, maybe not. Maybe we have one gentleman joined us. However, I'm going to tell you a secret for all the women and men in the world that get cold. I have a heating pad underneath my feet during the day, and it is dreamy. It is Rockstar. You should try it. You can get it, like, I guess dog beds have them, and then also like your winter boots, whatever. So that's my secret stay warm tip of the day. Heating pad under your feet. All right. Well, as I mentioned a little bit ago, I used to be the operational science officer for the Landsat satellite mission, USGS NASA mission. It is the honor of my life to serve in that role. And that's really where I got my feet wet in project management, which is like, talk about crazy, right? That is like throwing you in the deep end of project management. So there's a whole, as you might imagine, an entire global standard for project management. And so what you'll see after my name sometimes is PMP, which is Project Management Professional. What that means is that I have taken the test and proven that I know what I'm doing on project management. It's a global certification. It's something that's recognized widely. In fact, if you go out and you search in any job search, PMP, thousands of jobs will come up. So it's definitely something that if you're really nerding out about it and you really want to do more, you can certainly learn a lot more. And you can get whole degrees in it and all that stuff. So this is just designed to give you a little taste. I actually have included a little schedule exercise. So what I want you to do is, while I'm speaking in the first bit here, I want you to be thinking about a project that you might want to tackle. I don't care if it's a deck out back. I don't care if it's a new business. I don't care if it's something that maybe you work for a huge organization, say Black Hills Energy, and you want to take on the new development of some new giant thing, power plant, whatever. I want you to be thinking of those things. And then, because I'm going to ask you some questions. And the other thing to be ready to do is to maybe screenshot your screen on your computer, because there will be a couple things I'm going to go over that we probably won't have a huge amount of time to let you work through. And if you don't have a project ready to think through, it's sort of not very useful right now. But I tell you, at 2 o'clock this afternoon, you're gonna be like, oh, I have this great project that I want to try. And I've been thinking about this. I saw this project management thing and now I want to use it. And of course you won't have the stuff. So take fast notes. I'll try to give you time to take some notes when we get to that part. Take fast notes, or plan to do some screenshots. I won't be offended. It's possible too that if you really want some of this stuff that I can pass it through Rachel or directly to you if I happen to know you. So, all right, let's see. I think I'm going to share my screen. Hi, all attendees. I'm gonna close my attendee list so I won't be able to see you anymore. Oh, Aaron just asked, will you be sending the video out afterwards? I think that's a good point, Aaron. Thank you. I think Elevate will be posting the recording. So I think that's a good point. Then you could sort of zoom into the right spot to check it out. All right, so I'm gonna close the chat window, and which makes me sad because I really would love to see you all. That would be amazing. I'm definitely a team person. I'm one of those people that actually, you know, when I'm home alone, I don't mind downtime, and I don't mind like sewing and reading and hiking and that kind of thing. But baking, a big baker, bread mostly. And, but at work, I thrive off humans. So please ask questions. I guess Meg said that she basically guilted you all into asking questions during her event yesterday or last week, or whichever one that was. So I would love to see some questions in the chat window. I probably won't have a chance to look at them, but if I notice them pop up, I will try to address them as we go. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and where's that? Here it is. I hope you have coffee this morning, by the way. I noticed, I think somebody said, I think Shelly posted on LinkedIn or somewhere to have coffee with Rachel this morning. So I'm just going to take that as permission to drink coffee with you. All right, here we go. All right, so project management. Now, if some of you have been through the SDCEO leadership program, Women in Leadership program, you will have seen very similar presentation from me. But trust me, you always need more. Right. And again, this is your chance for us questions. So if you've seen me do some of this presentation before, or a related presentation, you have a little bit of background, ask away. Because I'm sharing a screen, I don't actually get to see the chat window. So have patience with me if you don't see, if I don't answer your question right away. All right, so project management. The whole point of project management is to get things done on budget, to figure out what your budget is. Let's say that first of all, to be on time, and on target, which means scope. So how do you plan a project? So, you know, it's really, and even I'm going to use Cappy a lot. So I don't know if you guys know Cappy, but Cappy owns Pangea Design Group. He's got a couple shows on the Discovery Channel. They also show on DIY Network and GAC, and I forget the other ones, but anyway. So, and I'm his project manager for his construction company. And so I'll be using a lot of construction analogies. And I think that's super helpful too, because I think a lot of us kind of get the basics of construction. Like first you have to have the foundation, and then you have to put the walls, and then you have to put the roof, right? So there's kind of a logical progression in a lot of construction work. Now, does that mean that construction people can't know how to do this? No. I'm sure for all of you who have had any kind of house work done around the house by a contractor, you're like, yeah, you're right. Nobody knows how to do this. So there's definitely a need in the Western South Dakota for project management training, which is one of the reasons that I do talks like this, because it's just not it's not a thing that we talk about here. It's not a thing that we look for. It's not a thing that our jobs require. And so, I mean, the skills and tools are things that we need, but we don't put it on job descriptions. A lot of our bosses don't even know these things exist. So, so anyway, I'm trying to share a little bit more with you about what that looks like. So I do want to show my mug, which is I just bought at Surge's Coffee Company a little while ago. I don't know if you can see that. Not all who wander are lost. I'm not doing a lot of wandering right now. So I feel actually more lost when I'm not wandering. Meg and I we have on our calendar, we have a desk calendar, old school, and we had 3 days that we were both going to be in the office in April. And now we're in the office all day long, every day. So we're missing our travel schedule a little bit. One thing I did want to share with you briefly, not a sales pitch, just an awareness moment, is that we do offer 2 project management trainings that are pretty comprehensive. One is the bottom right, I guess, is project management training camp, which is all of the essential. How do you track budget? How do you resource level? We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the upper left one is organizational change, but still in the idea of getting project management stuff done, but how do you think about your people and how they react? And it's a really cool, interactive, very comprehensive class, really fun. Everyone loves to take them. These are June. Fingers crossed we can have a June class, right? But just want to let you know that these are available if you're interested. If you want to know more, they're on our website, but Shelly can get you all the details that you need. So just wanted to throw that out there in case you want more formal training. All right, so why me? Why am I doing this training? I'm not really a project management trainer. I do that class 3 times a year. Again, because I want to build the level of expertise in the region because I think we really need it. So my professional history, I mentioned the satellite mission a little bit. But how I started was as out of college was as an image analyst. So the pictures that were taken of the Earth, I would look at and figure out what was going on. So like Hurricane Katrina, I would look at and we would document which areas were flooded, which areas were damaged, and that kind of stuff. Actually, you have seen Landsat data because on your phone, if you go to any mapping application on your phone, go to mapping application. Oh, I have my dark screen on. And then you click satellite and you look at it like that. That is Landsat data. So especially as you zoom out to the region, and you see the Black Hills on the south and the ranching country to the north there, that is Landsat data. So you have seen it. So I spent my whole life looking at imagery from space, which is pretty stinking cool. But over the time, I went away, got my master's degree, came back, went away, got my PhD, came back. And over time, I was asked to serve on the mission side, the engineering side of the mission. So I went from the science side of the house to the engineering side of the house, which I really quite loved, although I was the only scientist and it took them a while to sort of embrace me. But man, that was the coolest, best team I ever worked for. Then I became a business owner about, I suppose over 5 years ago now, which is kind of a huge milestone. They say basically if you can make it 5 years, that's the hardest bit because you've kind of figured out all the stuff. And so I feel like I was kind of surprised to realize that I had made it 5 years because it can be a real slog. But my current project is a multi-million-dollar business, which I co-founded with Meg Mankey. You have seen her and will see her on some training on Elevate, which we're excited to be a part of. And here's our URL if you want to check out all the cool stuff that we do. We're actually work all across the US and Canada. And we do virtual work. And, you know, I just got off the phone yesterday with a company who you would absolutely recognize as a household name. And we are working on supporting them through this time, understanding that they're people and how to help them be effective through this time. So it's kind of fun. All right. So the other thing I will just shamelessly promote is I do have a TEDx that was that I did in Rapid City. Look how short my hair was. My hair used to be like way shorter than that. It used to be like super like spiky on the top for like 10 years. And then also I do have a lot of articles running around in Forbes right now about this kind of thing. So if you want to know more about some of how to maximize and support yourself and each other through this crazy social distancing, check that stuff out. All right, so I wanted to, I gotta do this. I forgot, hold on, let me see if I can make this happen. I don't know how. Oh, cool, that's working. Awesome, because it's kind of animated and I didn't know I could do the animation, so cool. So, all right, what I have here, are you guys seeing this? Yeah, I think you are. I'm not sure what you're seeing though. All right, now I need you to actually throw me a chat and tell me what you're seeing. Oh, thank you, someone's chatting with me. You don't have it as full screen. Yeah, I know that part. Can you see the house? Can you see the old house? Is that what you're seeing? Yes. Thank you, Erin. I appreciate that. Yeah, I knew I didn't have it at full screen, Rachel. I just didn't know, because you know, on I have 2 screens, and when I go to like full screen, then it gives me like the timer window, you know what I mean? Like the presentation window, and I never know what you guys are seeing. So I'm just gonna assume you're gonna see the good thing over on this screen. You're gonna have to forgive me while I show you the side of my face once in a while. All right, so I had this old house. This is 2014, I bought this old house. And we called it the crazy house. I actually looked at it the first time. And let me tell you a little story about that. We went downstairs and there was, it has a half basement, which I was excited about because a lot of old houses don't have basements. And then where do you put all of the furnace and the, you know, hot water heater and all that stuff. And so, and it's not that big of a house. It looks big, but it's pretty small. And so we were going downstairs to check out what was in the basement. And there was this door, and it was kind of a creepy basement. I mean, it's dry, it's concrete, and it's a stone wall. So it's not like dirt, which I have been in some dirt basements before. And of course, if you have one of those basements, it's probably very fine because you have like real light and things like that. But this house didn't have any electricity, so it's dark. And there was this like grimy, you know, spider web covered window and blah. Anyway, and then above our heads in the floorboards of the room upstairs was insulation. So, but it was like that batting insulation that you roll out, and it was just kind of put in the ceiling. So it was kind of like hanging down in chunks, and oh God, it was creepy. Anyway, so there was a door. There's a door in there, and I thought, oh, well, we were in half of the basement. So like, here's a door. I figured, okay, that door wasn't going to the other half of the basement. Maybe that part was dirt. It was like maybe the root cellar or whatever. Well, we go to this door, and I was here with my friend John Nero. So if you want to hear about this story, he was there. He can attest to this weird, crazy thing. So we went to this door, and the door, we tried to open the door, and it was screwed shut from our side. So someone had put screws all around the door. And then they had rolled rocks in front of the bottom crack of the door. And we were like, what the hell is over on the other side that you would have to keep in? Right? Like, what is happening? So that was like scary as hell. So anyway, we called it the crazy house. And also you can see in the upstairs windows, maybe not a little bit, but you could kind of see that there were, and you can see that someone had pulled the drapes down, but like this drape you can see is kind of like sliced. And it looked like, and it was just old crappy material that had deteriorated in the UV, but it looked like someone had like, you know, scratched it. Super creepy. Anyway, so, but the house itself is like, the bones of the house were really good. And of course I live in Spearfish, and housing here is ridiculous. It's even worse now. So I could buy a house that needed a lot of work, but was livable. But even then it was super expensive. Or I could buy this house, which was still expensive, but I could, you know, strip it down to the studs and then build it back up. So I had a lease in a townhouse for like 5 months. So I thought, well, we'll get started. So anyway, we grabbed this house, and let me see if I can, okay. And this is what it looks like now, or that's what it looked like in August when we finished it that year. And so the cool thing is I had maybe, no less than 30 people tell me that this house was empty for 10 years. And I had no less than 30 people say, I wanted to do that house. I just didn't know. I just didn't know where to start. I didn't know where to start. And so that's the power of project management, is that I could look at that crazy house and say, what actually has to be done and how should we do it? And how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? So this is the fun thing about project management. A lot of people want to see the inside, because I used to just show the outside, and then people wanted to see some inside pictures. I'm not sure how many I have, but maybe just one. So this is the kitchen. This is an original cupboard, and then the rest is new. The floors are original. I kept the floors, and anyway, the rest is new. So this is the kitchen. I kept the floor plan the same. All right, so that was the one inside picture you get to see, I guess. And then this is the other project I had on the property, which was, this was the old servants' quarters. And it was mostly used as a chicken coop. I don't know if they ever had servants in it. My house was kind of fancy for the time. It was built in 1898, and it had a coal gas plant in the back of the house. So they had, like, you know, the lamplighter lights that you'd turn the gas on and you'd light, and then you'd have these sort of like in Deadwood, they had them as a city service. And this woman who built the house, her name was Ida Hall. She actually built it with this coal gas light, because when we didn't know that. We broke out the walls, we found all of the gas tubing, gas pipes. And you can kind of see back in this picture, in the back, the original picture, also had some stained glass and that kind of, but it wasn't like super fancy like Victorian. There are some, like the fancy houses in Deadwood put this to shame, but it is a really pretty little house. So anyway, so this is the finished one, and then this is the office that I started working in. We're now planning on building an actual big office building in downtown Spearfish this summer, if the Rona doesn't knock that out of the schedule. So that remains to be seen. And then this is the inside of that building. So here's the house. And then this is a beautiful spring picture. This makes me want spring. But I do have a couch and a table and in here. Now we share it with 2 other humans full time. So it's pretty crowded. We're super excited to get our own place. So this old house, so this is doable because I think like a project manager. I don't get overwhelmed by the massive scope. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's like, holy smolies, lots of money, lots of investment. I know how to plan and monitor my budget. I hire good people I depend on, also very key. And I know that you guys feel the same way, like you don't want to be micromanaged, nor do you want to micromanage other humans. So what is the balance between having a plan and letting people work? So when the story about, that's actually how I kind of met Cappy. I knew Cappy from before, but only in passing, like friends of friends. And then nobody in Spearfish, no real like big company would touch this house, because I guess like 4 or 5 people had tried to do something with a house and they kind of bailed mid-project. So everyone's like, yeah, no, we don't want anything to do with that. No banker would give me money to do it. I had to self-fund the build. So when I thought, well, who would do this for me? And I was like, oh, maybe that crazy Cappy guy would do it. Because I called him the guy with the big beard and the crazy eyes, because he's very intense when he looks at you. So you're like, whoa. He's fun. You should meet him. Anyway, so when I got together with Cappy said, yeah, sure, I'll take a look at the project. And I know the house. He did some work on the property. Some of the buildings had been falling down. It was a whole homestead for a farm or a ranch. And so a couple buildings were falling down, and he had come in and helped take those buildings out. So he knew the house, he knew kind of where it was and what the deal was. And so what I asked him to do was put together an estimate for what he thought it would take to build this out budget-wise. And then I built my own budget. My dad's a builder, so I knew a little bit about it. I asked him. Well, when we met, we came within $5,000 independently of what we thought what it would take, which is incredibly close. And so I knew that at least we were both understood the scope and what this was going to be about. and what it was going to take. So the other thing you have to be ready for, and what project management helps you with, is you have to have contingency for scope, schedule, and cost. Deltas is just change, right? Cost change. So there is no plan ever that hasn't been changed, maybe even the next day. So that's the other thing you have to be good at, is creating a plan and a strategy, but being ready to modify, and how you modify and how that works. So big struggle for a lot of people. Like, a lot of people get a plan and they just can't let that plan go because they think it's perfect. A lot of other people want to create the perfect plan and they can never do, like paralysis by analysis, right? And they can never do. But the people that go running off and doing often spend more money and take longer because they didn't have a plan. So it is kind of this magic balance between planning and doing, and then also being prepared for those changes. And then so I was prepared for those changes as they happened, sometimes by choice, like my master bath is dreamy, but it was probably one of the most expensive rooms in the house because I used a lot of stone and I changed the walls. And so, but that's my choice. I get that choice. And then also by accident. So one time there was one time that we did, the windows were 4 weeks late. And we had already planned on 5 weeks from order to delivery. That's 4 weeks is normally standard. We gave them another week. And then we found out that they were another 4 weeks out. And yeah, that was a problem. Not really a huge problem, but it was a problem in the sense of I had to move out of my townhouse May 30th. And we found out that the windows were late in April. So that meant that we couldn't put the windows in until May, which pushed everything off. So we were supposed to have the house essentially done, with the exception of perhaps trim work or final appliances and some of those sort of, or maybe the deck, some of that stuff, essentially done by the end of May. So I could move in with my daughter. And yeah, that was clearly not going to happen with 4 weeks delay. So then I had to figure out what to do. It turned out fine. What we ended up doing is, because I thought, well, I could live in a hotel for a month. I could live with friends for a month. Like, what were my choices to make up that time? And what we ended up doing was we ended up finishing a bedroom and a bathroom completely so that it was livable as kind of a small apartment in the house, which is not efficient at all because, of course, then we're doing the floors and the plumbing and all that stuff out of order from the rest of the house. So what we did is we finished a bedroom and a workable bathroom so that we could have kind of an efficiency apartment in the house, and then they finished the rest of the house around us. Our kitchen, our efficiency kitchen, was a microwave and a table. So, but we made it work. It was good. My daughter was 6, and she thought it was a big adventure, mostly because I convinced her it was. The other thing is I believe that I can, right? This is how I pulled it off. So having the tools and skills prepares you for opportunity, period. If you don't have them and there's too much uncertainty, then you won't actually tackle a lot of the projects that you want to. All right, so what is project management? What does it look like? Like that's an example, but how do we see it in other places? Well, here's an example. This is the Rio Olympics. They weren't ready, right? I don't know if you remember that, but they were not ready. And so the apartment sucked, they didn't work, the plumbing was terrible, all of that stuff. And this is a failure of project management, complete failure. If you're a project manager, a good one, you can pull off amazing stuff. And even things that people don't think you can pull off. And that's kind of the heady fun of it. All right, so the most important thing about being a project manager is that you have your act together completely. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have like, okay, we better get in here and get this problem solved right now. Let's get everyone in the room. This is a situation. But the other cool thing I love about project management, and I'm just going to say that here so I don't forget, is this complete transparency. There's no hiding things. There's no, oh, there's bad news, no one else knows it but me, that kind of junk. No, that is not how this goes down. Everybody knows. We hang charts on the wall so everyone knows exactly who's doing what, where people are. That allows for high performance. It allows for dealing with issues immediately. It allows to take the emotion out of conversations and look at structurally what's going on in the project and how to problem solve. It's not about blaming, it's about solving. And I love that a lot. All right, another thing too that I love about project management is it's high gear versus high drama. So instead of running around with your hair on fire trying to put out fires, which we all know people like that, and sometimes we get stuck in those kind of roles or situations, but I prefer high gear. So I prefer to have things planned, I prefer to have things organized, I prefer to have things like rock star. I prefer to have, here's the plan, gather the amazing people around me, and then go make it happen. So why I learned project management, I've talked about some of these already. But specifically and technically, it clarifies the range of activities it takes to be successful, reduces risk, allows an organization to balance resources, money, humans, and time, enables formal discussions, not opinions, also a thing I love, provides a consistent framework for professionals between organizations. So if you're representing your, organization in a conversation, or if you're maybe looking for a new job, or maybe you are an independent person and you're working with clients, having the same conversation relates things directly. You can understand what each other's saying. If somebody comes in the room and says, all right, guys, we're gonna have to crash the schedule, you can kind of guess what that means, but you probably don't know what it implies. So having a consistent framework for conversation is really, really important. It increases your success. And it decreases your angst. So there is nothing better to me than decreasing my stress levels. I don't like drama. I like consistent, predictable, getting things done. That's what I like. So that's what project management is great. All right, so project management can be a tricky business. So there are 10 project management knowledge areas that if you do official training, you will learn some about and you will do the things. So there's risk management. And this is an entire sector of project management that some people really dig and other people hate. I hate it. But I don't find a lot of value in it because the things that I do aren't inherently that risky. So if you talk to the space people at NASA that actually send people and humans and stuff and into outer space on top of big exploding rockets, they have zero risk and they have a whole risk management program. But what we do, inherently not that risky. All right, HR, and when we say HR, we mean it's human resources, but it's not hiring and firing and benefits and stuff. It is about what are the humans you have to work with and what are their skills and how do you deploy them in the project. Quality is a big one. Of course, money is a big one. Purchasing or procurement. There are some organizations that are big and you don't get to buy anything. Some organizations are small like ours, and we have, sort of enabled people to buy the things that they need. But then there's places like the federal government, which is where I grew up through my career, and we had a travel card, and so we could purchase travel things related to travel ourselves without a prior approval. We had the trip was approved, but we could buy hotels and meals and stuff like that. But anything else, you were like debt. So it was like most organizations have pretty strict procurement rules, and you have to understand those in order to be a successful project manager. Because of course, if you have to buy something, you have to know how long it takes, who needs approval, blah, 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 all that stuff. All right, timeliness and schedule. Communication is huge, as you might imagine. Defining what you want and the scope, one of the key tenets. And then stakeholders is a big one, and it was added relatively recently to the project management training and sort of what they cover, but it's one of the most important things. And then the big one is integration, because of course we want to be able to integrate all these things. Like if you're a specialist in risk, but you don't understand the scope, well, that's not going to work very well. So when you really do big project management, these are the areas that you would study. So let's just talk a little bit about project management specifics and have a little bit of thinking about a project that you want to do. So let's say you have a great idea, or maybe perhaps more likely sometimes you're assigned one. So now what happens? first, is it a project? I mean, this seems like an obvious done, but trust me, it gets kind of complicated. So it has to have a beginning and an ending. So it has to have a well-defined scope or what you want to do exactly, specific level of quality, specific budget. It exists or could be determined. Mostly it's handed to you like, listen, we have $5,000 to do this, go figure it out. Or specific schedule, and that exists or could be determined. Also, a lot of times it's like, well, let's make this deadline April 15th, or you say the deadline is April 15th, depending on what environment you're in. So one of the things I would like to, as an example, so let's talk about maybe a website is the easiest example. So a website as it exists, like if you go to our website and all of how that's working, that is operational. That is not a project. But the development of that project is a project, or the development of the website, sorry, is a project. So it has a start, it has a finish. The finish is when it's deployed live. It's got specific scope and details. I want pictures. I want an events calendar. I want products, whatever those things are. You can make a list and manage that. Now, if our web person would have come back and said, well, okay, well, this website is going to be $100,000 and it's going to take me a year to make, I would say, okay, well, let's break down the scope, right? I'm going to reduce the things I need to do. Or it might be that she says, well, it's going to take a year because you want 1 million people to be able to access it at one time. And then I go, well, if I don't need 1 million, I probably need 2. And so then that's going to change the scope and the quality. So these things interact all the time, and that's kind of why it's a magic. It's the integration piece is a magic part of it. All right, so planning. So the most important step, and like I mentioned before, you don't want to get into analysis paralysis, but you want to move forward. So be thinking about your project, because the next page we're going to talk a little bit about how to actually sketch out some of the critical things about your project. So the most important step is to create this project management plan. So define your requirements, what actually has to be done. Now that's not, let's say you want a deck out back. My requirements for a deck is it to be far enough away from the house so I can put a table and chairs around it. Because if you can't sit and eat on the deck, what is the point? Now, I think the minimum distance that is 9 feet, maybe a little smaller, to really have a full table. Now, I could have a 12-foot deck. That'd be okay. But my requirement is really 9. So that's what gold plating means. Gold plating means don't add extra just because it's nice to have. What are your key requirements, minimums? Let's say you want a hot tub on that deck. You have to brace it more. It has to be able to hold more weight. And so, decide what your requirements are. Now, if you build a deck and you don't have a hot tub out there, and then you decide you want to put one out there, it probably will not hold the weight, and the power won't be there that you need, and that kind of stuff. So that's why it's important to decide as early as you can in the beginning what you actually need. So requirements. Build the schedule. That's create your task plan. You don't have to do that right now, but just so you know what the flow is. Create a task plan. It's also known as a work breakdown structure. So a WBS if you're kind of in the business. Prioritize and identify the sequence of those tasks, and then plan for your staffing needs. So acquire or contract for external resources. Maybe you're going to do it all yourself, but you just want to have the plan in place so you know what's coming next. And the cool thing is if you have the plan, then you can say, well, in 4 weeks, I need windows, so I'm going to order them today, instead of waiting till you need them and then go, oh, they take 4 weeks or 8 weeks in my case. Okay, estimate. Then from there, you can estimate your costs, and then you can plan quality control or assurance. So the tricky thing is it's easy, relatively speaking, to create a plan, the resources, the budget, and then you kick off, and then it's hard to track because a lot of us get excited in the front, and then actually tracking over time is a different kind of skill. And so that will be a big challenge. We're not going to talk too much about that. I just want to warn you that that's a tricky part of project management. Okay, so this is where I want you to get out a pencil and paper and sketch out a few things, because I think this is the part where I want you to start connecting some of these ideas with your personal project, or just make up one, or think about one you've done before. We all have little projects that we're doing. Maybe it's a Girl Scout event or something. Or maybe you're a volunteer for a nonprofit or whatever it might be. So, okay, so why do you want to do it? That's important. And that's usually the business case. In a business, it's the business case. Like we re-recorded all of we have an academy called Rose Group Academy. It's an online learning management system. And it's a way that you can get more training on what Rose Group does in our IX leadership book and all that stuff. So we re-recorded all the videos because it's been about 18 months and they just needed to be freshened up. So the business case of spending time and resources doing that is because everyone's at home, people are looking for training, and we wanted to make sure our training was ready to go, the most recent up to date we had, so that we could feel great about inviting people to take that training. So the business case is bring in more people and help more people into our world. Okay, so the goal, what does success look like? For us, the goal was to update all the materials. Now, the goal might be farther out, bring in 100 people. But right now we're focused on just the video development. That's a project. So what does success look like? Getting all the videos recorded and uploaded and updated into the system. So who will do the work and who are the stakeholders? So in our case, Meg and I did the recording. We outsourced the video production to a local person. And then our GM, Shelly, is going to be uploading and scrubbing and making sure we didn't mess anything up. So we have kind of 3 levels of quality checks on, oh, well, you said this wrong, or this doesn't make sense, or you're missing this, right? So that's who's doing the work. So who's going to do your work? When, schedules, and phasing. So the schedule came very fast because, of course, we all got socially distanced against our will, well, most of us. And so we're like, okay, what can we do with this time we have? And so we have the schedule. So immediate, and then we hand it off to our production person. And now Shelly has it in her hands and she's working on it right now. So we had about a 3-week window from beginning to end, which is fast. And in a normal environment, we could not do it that fast because we just don't have that much time available to do this project. But now we have all this time. And then how the person in charge will handle things. So things like if you have too many cooks in the kitchen, things go sideways, right? So because somebody thinks somebody else has it, Rachel thinks Meg's taking care of it, Meg thinks Rachel's taking care of it. Maybe we think Shelly's doing something that she's not doing. And not that that's anyone's fault at all. It's that there's no one that's kind of tracking all of the tasks. So in this case, Meg and I worked on the videos together because we were both in them. And then I was the one that is working with the production person. And then I'm interfacing with Shelly. And then Shelly's going to interface with the graphic designer for any updates. And so we have, and then I'll be checking with Shelly about how things are going. So that's how we structured it. And then how much is the budget? So right now, the budget, the cool thing is if you're working with yourself, sometimes you're like, well, I'm salaried, so there's no budget. So I'm just going to fill the time. However, we all know that our time is our most precious resource. So if I'm not doing videos or working with Shelly on the upload and all that stuff, then I would be doing something else. And so you have to account for your own time and the time of your people in a real way, because frankly, everything that you do is a trade-off. And if your boss comes in and says, hey, here's another project, you're salaried, you can do another project. You can say, I love that idea, boss. I totally want to do that for you. I will do that for you. But here's the story, or and is always better. Here's the story. We have these 7 projects lined up already. So if we put this project on top, that means these 2 are going to be delayed past when they were supposed to be due. Your boss might decide, oh, don't do that then. Do this other thing. But if you don't have that information ready and available, they can't make that decision. So it's part of the magic of project management. You get to have logical decisions instead of just like being pissed that your boss is telling you yet again to do more things than you have time for. All right, so current constraints. So let's think of this. So current constraints are to be really realistic about what's going on with your plan, okay? Because like there are constraints, and we can be as optimistic as we want, But frankly, you have people that maybe they're going to go off to National Guard commitments. Maybe you're going to hire external IT support and you don't know how much that costs. And maybe you have Christmas holidays coming, or summer, or social distancing, or whatever. Everything that can delay or cost more money or change the scope, be aware of and document. It's really easy for us to be optimists and say, oh no, I could get that project done in 3 weeks. Yep, we could. We probably could have got this video thing done if we would have smooshed everything together. It took us 3 days to do the videos. Probably could have taken a day and a half, maybe 2 days to do the production, and then maybe 3 days if all Shelly did was upload videos. And then maybe we'd be done in a week and a half. But frankly, everyone's got stuff to do. So we have to balance all the other things that we're doing. So, and we're social distancing, which means that we're not as productive. We're super distracted. Some of us have kids at home. Some of us have just processing all of it is overwhelming. Some of us are making masks for the hospital. Like, even though we're supposed to be working, like, people are going to be less productive. So the very first thing every project manager should have done 2 weeks ago was replan all the projects, because the people are not going to be getting enough stuff done. They're just not going to be as productive as they would be if they were in the office, period. So you have to be realistic. And what I would recommend is you document that. So when you put these things on a piece of paper and you start sketching out, how much do I want to spend? What's my top budget? Like, a lot of times when we work with construction projects, we'll put together the plan, and then the client will be like, oh, well, I only have $100,000 to spend. And you say it's $400,000 to build this house. And so what we do now is we ask first, we say, do you have a budget for this, or a number in mind that you're shooting for? Because if they say $100,000 and we know it's a $400,000 build, then we'll tell them up front, we're not going to do all the work to put real numbers to this, because you are vastly underestimating the expense. So know your budget. If you have a budget, like if you're doing a personal project, if you know you have a budget that you can't exceed, look at that and see if you can fit it in that budget. Because most of us underestimate expenses and underestimate schedule. So just try to really be realistic as much as possible, and then add 20%. When you first start doing project management, everyone is optimistic. You try not to be, and then you should just add 20% anyway. So just do that. That will help a lot. And then if that shocks you, then you can start replanning. All right, so I just want to talk, excuse me, a little bit about stakeholder management. I've been doing a lot of talking on Zoom this week, and I haven't had enough coffee yet, so I'm just going to take a break. By the way, I would love to know what projects you're thinking of. So if you have any projects in your mind, you should put them in the chat window, because I'd love to see them. And also, if you have a project that you would like to tackle and you're not sure, reach out to me. Again, I'm a person that can't get enough engagement, and I don't see enough humans. So reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to chat with you. All right, so let's talk about stakeholders. So I learned the hard way that the worst thing in the world is to surprise somebody. I just got my butt kicked a lot because I didn't share. And because I assume I send out an email with all the information, people read it. Not true. You may have known this. So what you need to do is, and I'm sure all the communication experts in the room can tell us, is you have to communicate in the way that other people can take it in, not how you send it out, right? So the worst thing in the world is to surprise somebody. So like, there was a guy that I got totally busted for talking about. We did a big change. He's a big user of Landsat. I emailed him 1,000 times, but apparently I emailed him in a way that he felt wasn't for him. That was just like kind of newslettery. And so I should have picked up the phone and called him, because I knew he would be a shitty guy. He would be an ass to me if he felt slighted, and I didn't do it. And I knew I should have, like, deep down. I didn't actually know. Like, I just assumed that if he had questions, he would reach out, and he didn't. And so I assumed he had this shit figured out. I should stop swearing. He had this stuff figured out. But anyway, it was a very traumatic time in my life. Don't surprise people. So one of the things that you can do, and this includes personal projects, spouse, kids, whatever, make a list of who cares about what you're up to. And maybe that's a huge list. Maybe it's 3 people. Maybe it's, 10. Make a list of who cares about what you're up to. Prioritize that list likely into groups so that you don't have to, like if it's 50 people, you don't have to email or call 50 people. You can kind of group them. So if it's someone like my banker, I'm going to call him. If it's someone like the neighbors, I might wander over and chat. But if it's somebody like, what's a good example? Like maybe if it's the city inspector, we just let him know how it's going until we need him to come over, but we keep him updated. So that's kind of nice. Prioritize your list, likely into groups. Decide how you're going to manage each group. So that's what the power of making the list is. Then you can kind of group people and do it all together. Maybe you have a neighborhood potluck about your big house project so that everybody that's curious can come over and learn about it in one fell swoop, so you don't have to talk to every neighbor one-on-one. When do they know what is happening? When do you want to communicate? How much influence do they have? The more influence they have, the more and more critically you should be communicating. And then do they have financial interest? So the banker, maybe a partner, like when Meg and I do anything, she's 50% owner. So every major decision we make together. Are they an advocate to others? One woman I love to talk about is Priscilla Romkema. Some of you may know Priscilla. She's an amazing person. She's always super supportive. And so she doesn't have anything really to do with our business in the sense of like not a client, she's not anything, but she is an advocate. Like, so if you went and asked Priscilla, hey, do you know Rachel Headley and Meg Mankey? Do you know what they're up to? She'd be happy to tell you about, oh yeah, they're doing great. They're doing this, they're doing that. And so I, once in a while, update Priscilla because I know that she'll be an advocate for us. If our name ever circulates, she'll say the good things. So stakeholder management is super, super important. Okay, I have a question from Shiloh. What about when you have people who think they care about what you're doing, but they really don't need to know? Oh, yes. We call those people low influence, high need. So the trick of the matter is that people do need to know. And I know you don't want to hear that, but they need to know in the sense of they will torpedo you if you don't give them information. So is it easier to feed them a little information now and what's going on and kind of keep them in the loop, even lightly, or deal with them torpedoing you behind your back all the time? That is way more work. So being proactive about people, like there's a great story about that. There was a business going in Rapid City, I think. And it was one of those neighborhoods where it was right on the edge of commercial or retail district. And so they tore an old house down and built something there. I forget what it was. And there was a neighbor, and the neighbor doesn't need to know what's going on next door, ever. It's not his business. He doesn't own it. It's not his business, really, but it's his neighbor. So what happened was he got really upset and went to the city council, raised hell. It was he had a whole petition out to shut the project down. It was the company that owned it had to show up to council meetings and explain and settle everybody down. And it was a whole freaking mess. And it was hours and hours and hours of people's time and cost to settle down this crotchety old neighbor. And if all the project manager probably would have done on that project is walk over to Ed's house, knock on the door and say, hey, Ed, I'm the project manager next door. Can I take you out for a cup of coffee and talk about what this is going to look like? What's the schedule? How long you're going to be hassled? And and then if you have any questions, you can call me anytime. That 10-minute meeting, which doesn't need to happen, technically, would have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in people's time. So yeah, it drives you crazy. And I know it does. I have the same challenge. But really, if you step back from it and say, what is the damage this person can do? Now, if they're just going to be, if they're the busybody in the office and they don't actually have any authority, just copying them on an email once in a while is probably enough. But if they are in a position of authority, even if they're not your position of authority, or they can really cause trouble for you, best friend of the boss, whatever it might be, yeah, really, it doesn't hurt to feed them information. But Shiloh, if you have more details about that, reach out and we can chat about that. If there's it sounds like it's very specific. All right, so stakeholders, super, super, super important. All right, so we only have about 5 minutes to go. Let me see. All right, I'm gonna skip to this one. Let me think about this. Hold on, let me think. Okay, I think I'm gonna go. Sorry guys, I'm just running out of time. Okay, I think what I'll stick with is this one because I think it's interesting. Well, it gives you more insight into what to do. So the best laid plan. So executing monitoring is the biggest challenge. And we're not going to talk too much about this, but constant evaluation of progress is really important. And so what you see on the graphic here, this is actually a what's called a KPI, which is a key performance indicator. And it's estimated final cost, I think, is what this one is. And so you can see there, the 750 is in green, and that's the target we're trying to hit. And you can see from the little pencil dots that we're above the budget. We're exceeding the budget right now. And that's just, that's the way that you can, that's one way you can track how you're doing. Like, oh my gosh, we're spending a lot of money right now. What are we going to do? And then you have to, then what you want to do is be able to make decisions early enough that you can adjust the plan to get them in under control. So you want to constantly update issues and risk. Keep an eye on budget and schedule. You have scope creep is what it's called, where like for me, I went from a shower in my bathroom to a big giant soaker tub. It's a scope creep. It means there's more work, it's more expensive. But I looked at all the numbers and the schedule and decided that I could insert that with and be okay. And then change management, this will happen. And so you need to be really ready for that piece. One of the things I want to, let me think about what I've got at the end here. Maybe what I should do is just pause for a second. And we only have a few minutes left. So is there any other questions I can answer? Please feel free again to reach out. I don't have my email address on here, but I'm gonna, hold on. I'm gonna put it on there so you guys can see it. A lot of you know me already and know how to reach me if you have any questions. Here, I'll just put it in the chat window. Have any questions, reach out. I'm on LinkedIn and like all the time. So feel free to, oh, that's to panelists. Rachel doesn't even know how to get a hold of me. I need panelists and attendees. There we go. Rachel knows how to get a hold of me. So here's my email address. Can you do a part 2 next week? Would love to keep diving deeper. Yeah, I could. I'll work with Rachel to see, because there is stuff that I have put together that's pretty straightforward that we can sit down and look at how to build a schedule, how to lay out, things like that. And so that is something that we could definitely jump into a little bit deeper. So yeah, and then the other thing you guys could do to prepare, it might not be next week, it might be 2 weeks. I'm not sure what Rachel's schedule looks like, but the other thing you could do to prepare is to have a project in mind so that when we work through it, you can actually like be sketching things out, and I'll give you time to sketch out some things. So that'd be super great. All right, well, it is 10:28, so we got 2 minutes. Any other questions before we hang up? All right, it looks like everyone is ready to go on to other things. You're welcome. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. And tune into the rest of the series. I know Rachel's working hard to give you guys some really cool info as things come in and as times change and as things are happening. So yeah, check out the rest of the training. And then if you want to know a little bit more about some of our other work about dealing with the people side, we've got lots of free videos on our Facebook groups and our LinkedIn pages. Oh, one thing I should do is invite you to our IX Ambassador group. If you're not in there, we talk a lot about practical business things, what's going on in the news, how to look at it from a business and personal perspective, like human perspective about how to get people through it. And change management, that kind of stuff. It's called IX Ambassadors on Facebook. So join us out there. You can ask, that's another just way to contact us and work with us on lots of fun ideas. So you're all very welcome. It was great to see you guys, and we'll talk soon. Okay, stay healthy and well, and hopefully hopefully things will be easier than expected. So take care and talk soon. Bye. Mwah. Have a great week.